Jonathan, how we doing, man?
Hey, not bad. You? How's it going? Been following in intently. It's nice to see you all.
Yeah, you too, man.
Yeah. See on that screen there, all from the UK, and everyone thinks there's no carnivores. Well, we're monopolising the screen. And for those that are listening on the audio podcast, Jonathan, Carnivore Muscle, has appeared. He's in the house. So, Lee, do you want to stick around? Are you all right to stay for me?
If you want.
Stick on, Lee. Stick on. Yeah, it's funny. We're actually all from different corners of the country, if you kind of think about it. So we got Richard from Wales, me from, I guess you'd say, on the southwest. Lee's a bit more southeast, and Coach Stephen, I guess you can just monopolise the north of England, or the north half. So you're north to me anyway. So.
Well, Jonathan, I've got a question that I've been saving for you, if you wouldn't mind. I will look at what are you showing on the screen, and let's focus on the audio people.
So for the audio people, this is a keto bomb. It's a raspberry keto bomb, which Richard actually promotes and produces. I do actually use these myself, guys, so I recommend checking them out. So I'm going to be using this straight after this session. It's got caffeine, a few electrolytes, beta hydroxybutyrate, and we use it for the gym because, I'm going to need the energy today because it's pissing it outside. I'm going to need that sort of like motivation, that mental kind of hit to sort of get me going a bit. So I've been finding it helpful, honestly. So yeah, just thought I'd mention it.
Awesome. Appreciate it. I've got some lined up on the desk ready for the next 23 hours.
Well,
and energy for the break.
Hour.
The good stuff.
And so what's the benefit of having, by the way, for people listening, I'm just being devil's advocate. I know the answer, but we're going to ask questions. So Jonathan, what's the benefit of having caffeine like that rather than in a cup of coffee?
Oh, caffeine itself is just the poison that stimulates us, inhibits the breakdown of, I believe it's adenosine
triphosphate.
Triphosphate, that's the one. That's it. Cheers, Richard. I forgot that. Basically it means that you get more cortisol, more downstream hormones circulating in one period of time. It's useful. It doesn't have the anti-nutrients that are associated with coffee itself, acrylamide, things like that. I'm personally of the opinion that it doesn't make a massive difference between coffee and caffeine. I think it's like a very small 5% thing maybe. But I find it tastes nice. It's flavoursome. And I know Richard and Stephen, they're not big on coffee at the moment. So it's a nice little change. You get a bit fed up after a while just having black bean soup every day. So this is a bit more interesting. So we've got the added benefit of the BHB as well, which is great for, I find it helps with mental clarity, which is quite odd. And it does seem to reduce inflammation in the days I've used it versus not. So there we go.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what it does. I mean, being ketogenic, we produce beta hydroxybutyrate as we become adapted. Once we've upregulated the monocarboxylate transporters and specific enzymes, BDHA, Cat and Scott. But yeah, I find it fantastic. I'm certainly going to need it today for the mental clarity, and to keep me stimulated. But yeah, thanks for that. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
What about you, Lee? Do you do anything to stimulate yourself?
Not really. I've never been a coffee drinker either. So it's funny because as a window cleaner, I always get asked, "Do you want a hot drink? Do you want tea? Do you want coffee?" And I'd never got into that habit. So especially over here in England, they think I'm weird for not drinking tea. But yeah, I don't know. What do I do for a energy boost? Probably do the opposite and don't eat or drink anything.
And again, that's the same result. So this is going to increase beta hydroxybutyrate. So you created it endogenously opposed to putting it in from an exogenous source. And that's what being ketogenic and carnivore is, isn't it? We're producing high levels of endogenous ketones. The advantage of an exogenous form is that we just flood the body with it immediately. It gives us, so that we look at energy from beta hydroxybutyrate. It's not a stimulant per se. It's pure clean energy. So we don't get the crash. The caffeine we may get the crash from, but the beta hydroxybutyrate, we don't. It's a pure clean energy. It doesn't work the way that the coffee does, where we spike and crash.
Not pressing anything.
Exactly, but it's also a stimulating molecule, so it'll stimulate the production of further beta hydroxybutyrate within the body once it's been used up, But interesting stuff.
Cool. Right. Here's a question from Jay Duckley, I think. Hey guys, I wanted to know your thoughts on sarcoplasmic versus myofibrillar hypertrophy, but I think that's one for Jonathan, really. And Leah, if at any point you want to duck out, you can. I'm trying to be polite. If Jonathan wants to have the
Jay's actually asked me this question before. I've seen it from him before about twice.
Okay.
I will say it's sarcoplasmic. I haven't answered this question though. I think because but basically sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, you're looking more at the cell swelling side of it. So in terms of the body itself, you have more sodium coming into the cell, more potassium, more of minerals, more vitamins, things like that. It's just a cell swelling inflammatory process. Myofibrillar hypertrophy, pretty much a similar kind of thing. Like the cells do get bigger, but they actually just multiply. So someone like myself or Richard, we've both resistance trained for a long period of time. So in that time, we've gained more myofibrils. So if I went off training for 10 years and Richard did for 10 years, we came back, we'd make a quicker comeback in terms of our muscularity than most other people, because we're competitive bodybuilders. Is what we do. Now for Lee to go from where he is now to see where I am now in terms of muscularity, it would take him significantly longer because he hasn't already been that size. So the muscle cell quantity is still there. It's just the cell swelling, the sarcoplasmic hypertrophy side of it is lesser. So for example, if I take a week off the gym, despite my mass intake, not energy intake, mass, being significantly, it'd probably actually be lower because I'm not eating as much, not going to the gym, not exercising as much fat, and so on and so forth. I'd actually lose weight. If I stopped training right now for a week, I'd lose weight. Then if I started training again, I'd gain that weight straight back. The intracellular hydration would just pop right up. The body would hold more blood volume, more water volume, and that'd be perfectly normal. The body, the water content of the body and the blood content of the body is dictated by the necessity of the activity that a person that is living in their body is trying to do. So me, I'd have more blood cells. So we look at, for example, an endurance athlete, they'd actually have more red blood cells to deal with the activity that they have at that point in time. So yeah, that's the main critical difference is one's more cell swelling and one's more cell number, cell amount of cells basically. There's a bit more nuance to it, but that's the main difference.
Yeah, I suppose it's important because and Rich mentions this as well. When you have glucose, you get that pumped look. So sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, I suppose you could just summarize, it gives you more of a pump than say myofibrillar, which is more about dense and hardness. I mean, I've got a bit of that, but if I had carbs, my bicep would look a little bit bigger this morning because it would be a little bit swollen by, there's more.
I'm gonna show you guys what I carbed up on before my show this year.
Go on then.
My carb loading. So it was these. It was actually or brisket, but the
Mason Survival.
Yeah. So these are like beef jerky things, very clean, salt, beef fat, brilliant. But the buttery, like you eat them and you think that's a nice snack, like way better than what you'd imagine. I'm sure you guys have already tried it, but yeah, that's what I carbed up on. So protein and fat, or just eating backstage, like nibbling a bit. Low density, low volume. They're great for endurance athletes, great for people that are physically active, that have to eat a lot of food because it's obviously dried. Yeah, maybe you miss out on a few little tiny percentages of this here and there, this vitamin, this mineral, whatever. But largely speaking, the nutrient density is all compact within that food and it's small. If you have big appetite like me, you have to eat a lot of food. Brilliant. See, I get that cell swelling, that pumped up feeling from brisket and jerky, basically.
Yeah, it's cool. I'm going to go on to a question which is open house for everybody. Now, Jonathan, it is called Carnivore Muscle, and Lee Copus is Kent Carnivore, but we can answer questions about everything. And obviously, Keto Pro that can answer anything as well. Right, so we've got here, hi. If a diabetic starts carnivore diet and her sugar level drops, what should she do? Well, if you're diabetic in your medication, then you should speak to your practitioner and make sure that your dosage is correct, because your dosage of medications is always in relation to carbohydrate intake, or that, I mean, that's very basic, but we look at how your insulin is working, however you want to view it. If your blood glucose starts to drop, then you need to medicate in a different way, possibly with less medications, so you don't get into insulin shock and actually go into hypo. But of course, this the broad answer to this is your body wants roughly 1 teaspoon of glucose in 5 liters of blood. That's what it's trying to get. That's your normal blood glucose level. Diabetes is chronically raised blood glucose. That's it. That's all that is. All right. So if your blood sugar level drops, is it dropping to where it should be? See, this is the thing. If it's double what it should be, let's say it's 2 teaspoons, your body will release more insulin to bring it down. Well, what's your body telling you? Well, that 2 teaspoons is toxic. It doesn't want 2 teaspoons. It wants 1 circulating at all time. So you're going to put your insulin load up. So I'm trying to make this very basic, but if anyone's got a better take on it, please feel free to chime in.
Not really. I mean, you're just going to potentially start overdosing on your medications. You're just not required so much. Same as if you've got type 1, so you don't require so much insulin if you're not eating so many carbohydrates.
Cool. Okay. Right. Let's go into the next question then, which is here. This is about willpower, not the person willpower, but the abstract. So strict carnivore at the start of the year, 8 weeks in, lost 17 kilograms, felt amazing. All it took to break me was a binge on a weekend. Now I feel I have no willpower to get back on. Any suggestions? Wow, the first part of that question should be enough to get you back on. Really, you lost 17 kilograms and felt amazing. So my little bit before everyone else chimes in is remember what your reason why is. Because, boy, if I was doing this for 8 weeks and I was new to it and I lost 17 kilograms and felt amazing, I'd want to be back on that. That's all I'd need. I just need to write that on a piece of paper, put it on my fridge and think, and have a picture of when I was 17 kilograms down and think, wow, this is so worth doing. That for me, I don't think it is about willpower. I think it's about a shift in more things than that. But I'll let the other guys have a chime in.
This is a good question. Yeah, I'll touch on it quickly. So I did a contest prep a few years ago. I think it's 2021 when I won the Mr. Wales competition. And yes, Richard, I won the Mr. Wales competition. And I dropped, I believe it was 16 or 18 kilos in 6 to 8 weeks. So if someone is coming to this way of eating, they're not a bodybuilder, they're not perhaps well versed in like diet, exercise, training, how to manipulate body fat, and they've lost 17 kilos in 8 weeks, congratulations. You've achieved what an advanced bodybuilder has achieved that knows exactly what they're doing. So I'd take that on your stride and just say, okay, the next day, get on with it. Some people, they know they're going to binge and they're almost better off just eating an apple or something, or just something a bit off, just because it keeps them in a good sort of mental state. It keeps them motivated, some people. But write down your goals, write down how you felt before, during, and after this binge. What was your score? If you felt like 10 out of 10 before, then you're eating it. Oh, I feel 10 out of 10. I'm eating Pop-Tarts and brownies and, I don't know, roast potatoes and beef dripping, which are very nice, I think. But if you're doing all that, then you think, okay, well, after that, I felt like crap. And I feel worse the day after and the day after. My knees are swollen, I'm inflamed, I'm sore, I'm tired, I didn't sleep well. You've just lost 3 days for that one moment of bliss. So look back at it in that kind of angle, and that's probably what I would do personally. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think understanding some of the mechanisms behind it. Sugar blocks the prefrontal cortex, our body's ability to make sensible decisions. It's a drug. It's arguably more addictive than heroin. And I've got to be careful what I say there, because I've had a lot of flack from saying that in the past. Yet you see a lot more people addicted to sugar than you do being addicted to heroin. it does act in the same way as a drug does. It's highly addictive, and I believe it's one of the most addictive compounds on the planet. Simply understanding that it's that addictive and it blocks our brain's ability for reasonable thinking should allow us and empower us to make better decisions. Try not to keep anything that's going to be tempting in the house. Remove it. If you have the ability, don't buy it. Don't have it in the house. When you wake up at 2 a.m. in the morning and you have those cravings, it's a lot more difficult to jump into the car and drive to McDonald's or a local garage for a bar, which I have done, by the way, when I was clinically obese and type 2 diabetic myself. But you're a lot less likely to do so if it's not in the house. If you have other family members, put all of the sweet treats into one cupboard, mark it as their cupboard in your mind. And I know this sounds stupid, but I promise it works. You tell yourself that that's not your cupboard. You're not allowed to go into that cupboard. And a similar sort of process in regards to the fridge also. Understanding that these things impact our neurotransmitters, and our neurotransmitters are what allow us to feel happy, sad, so on and so forth. Sugar, which we mentioned earlier, just before you guys came on, sugar increases insulin. Insulin drives and pulls all amino acids out of the blood except for tryptophan, leaving tryptophan available for synthesis. And tryptophan is the precursor to serotonin. So it's another pathway that makes us feel good, along with dopamine, which affects the mesolimbic pathway. These things are reward pathways. They make us feel good, but they're short-lived. So every time we consume a sugary treat, we have a dopamine or serotonin fix, but it's short-lived because it's not natural. But these compounds are produced naturally from amino acids, tryptophan, tyrosine, and phenylalanine. And in order to create them naturally, we need to avoid compounds that are going to block cofactors. So it's not enough just to eat those amino acids. We need cofactors like zinc, iron, magnesium, vitamin B3, B6, B12, so on and so forth. Things like lectins and phytic acids, which are found in lots of these sweet treats, biscuits, breads, pastas, rice even, and lots of other plants, nuts and seeds. They can block the absorption of these compounds by as much as 100%. Even if we look at grains, in particular breads that are treated with glyphosate, 95% of the neurotransmitters are created within our gut. And they're done so through a pathway called the shikimate pathway. Glyphosate blocks the shikimate pathway. So just consuming vegetables that have been, sprayed with glyphosate, and let's take vegetables out of the scenario. Grains, which are incredibly detrimental, and nobody should be consuming grains. They cause intestinal permeability, autoimmune disease, so on and so forth. But the glyphosate will block that shikimate pathway and our body's ability to create these neurotransmitters naturally. So this is how much of an impact these compounds have on our body's ability to make us feel good. So just by removing these and eating more animal proteins with natural fats and being mindful that every time, as Jonathan said, every time that you consume this compound, it puts you back a couple of days, that should be enough to allow you to maintain the journey and stay on the straight and narrow. This is all about the rule and not the exception. Consistency is key. It's people quite often think that it's restrictive. And how can you live such a restrictive lifestyle? I don't find it restrictive. I love eating steak every day, and beef mince and lamb and pork and chicken and so on and so forth. And you don't need to be as strict as maybe some of us are. You can be a bit more flexible, but you need to be predominant in real foods, removing those compounds that are going to lead to those sensations, particularly the grains and the seed oils. But understanding those mechanisms, I think, is an important part of it also.
That's fabulous. It's fabulous. Right. Don't forget, guys, you can use the private chat if you want to say something to me off camera. If you've spotted a brilliant question you want me to jump to, that's fine as well. Right. Now we've got this question here. Hi. All carnivore for 18 months, lost 50 pounds, 10 pounds to go. So that's great. Feeling good and healing well, which is also brilliant. Apart from recurring gout, inflammation in knees and feet, is this normal? Black coffee drinker and pork eater. Right. So you see now you've led us up the garden path of what you think it might be. And I think we've got some difference of opinion in the room, but personally, I would take the coffee out. And I think I'm going to echo what Jonathan said about the acrylamides. I am now a believer that the acrylamides are the problem. It's not the caffeine so much. I think it's the acrylamides, because I had this. So I don't want to bore people with this too much, but suddenly my soccer activity went up, and it was like my feet seemed to not fit my football boots anymore, which is a sign of inflammation. I took the coffee out and all those pains went. I put the coffee back in and all those pains came back. So I did an interventional experiment for myself. So for me, that's what I would try. I'm not saying it is that reason, but I think that would be my first port of call. And I think that might be why you've mentioned it. And then pork, obviously, many people think about the linoleic acid or the omega-6s, but I'm not going to monopolise the conversation because we've got two great guests. So let's hear Jonathan, Lee, what you want to say. We'll start with Lee and then Jonathan and then Richard.
Well, I think it is quite common based on what I've heard, and I think it's just exposing your previous diet. I think the general advice here is colchicine to be prescribed, an appropriate dose while you are transitioning. Anyone who's got gout, I think that at the end of the day, the only way to fix your gout is to go carnivore. Essentially, you don't want to be continuing to damage your liver and your kidney, which are the reason why people get gout flares. It's not about purines in foods, but if your liver and kidneys damaged, it's not going to be able to deal with the purines in foods, flushing out uric acid, etc. So it will fix. It's just going to take some time. So you might want to go about taking some colchicine or something like that to manage your symptoms until you fix your gout, because this is the only way to genuinely cure gout. Medications aren't the answer, and eating carbohydrates and things that damage your liver and kidney function aren't the answer. So just hang in there and maybe take some medication to reduce the symptoms.
Jonathan.
Nice one, mate. I think it's probably not the coffee. I think it's probably not the pork. I think it's something which people experience, which is apparently the second or third most common cause of gout, namely the crystals that form within joint tissues to exacerbate symptoms of inflammation and pain. And I'd probably say it could be some form of oxalate dumping. It could also be maybe you've changed your diet and you've done something differently. Maybe you're sweating more. Maybe you're depleting more calcium. Maybe these factors are compounding to have an effect in such a way that you can no longer dissolve, absorb, flush out oxalate crystals from your body. Now remember, everyone talks about oxalates. It's not just oxalates. Oxalates are a problem. They are easy to be measured in foods. You can find out where they are. Richard always brings up really good points about things like gluten and other anti-nutrients. So it could be any of those things. As I think your body's just in a pinch right now. I think if it's recurring, I think it probably shift, but I think you could be experiencing maybe oxalate dumping. But my first port of call based on this information, assuming you've been going steady for 18 months and you're getting gout and inflammation around the knees, feet, your diet's probably quite clean, I'd imagine, from what I've read before. Then I'd probably say get a blood test, see what's going on. Find something in your blood which is messed up and extrapolate from there. Then obviously do the obvious, which is rule out any obvious things which are perhaps deleterious. So the coffee could be one of them for some people. It could be that. I don't think it's pork, because I think pork's grossly overstated. Even the bad quality stuff they talk about in the US where they're fed a higher linoleic acid diet. Me and Stephen have talked about this before. It's probably not that. I don't think it's your omega-3 to 6 ratio. I think it's something within your joints causing damage. So some kind of crystal. I'd look at doing other things as well, like grounding, just to enhance your glutathione pathways, which are improved whenever you try to detox yourself using a proper human diet, and do all the life hacks, the grounding, what sort of thing. So yeah, get a test, see what's going on. Maybe add even calcium, dairy back into your diet. Maybe that will slow it down. Maybe that's an issue there. Who knows? Honestly, impossible to answer.
Richard.
Yeah, some fantastic answers there, and I think they're all worth taking note of. in regards to gout, fructose and fructans are usually the biggest contributor, but this is irrelevant for you, so I'll skip those part in regards to monosodium urate crystals, etc. But gout is inflammatory in nature, usually caused by insulin resistance. But in this case, I should imagine that you reverse that. Alcohol, milk, can also cause it. So if you are consuming A2 milk and dairy, that could be a contributing factor. I would come back to the coffee. We'll circle back to the coffee in a bit, actually. But coming back to what Jonathan said, it makes perfect sense that if you've been living a carnivore lifestyle for that long, that it could be oxalate detox. To which I wouldn't personally. I'm not a lover of calcium as supplementation. I think we get plenty from the diet. The cells in the body need calcium to magnesium at roughly a 1-to-1 ratio. And I'm always hesitant to increase that calcium because excessive calcium consumption can lead to increased risk of cardiovascular disease by as much as 15%. I know that the standard protocol for dealing with oxalate detox or oxalate dumping is to put calcium back in because it has a high affinity to calcium. It'll bind to calcium. But if we look at, if it is an oxalate issue, one of the biggest conditions with oxalate detox or dumping is a condition called hypokalemia, which is where we have low potassium. We're on a lifestyle where we're consuming salt or sodium. We're adding Celtic sea salt to our meals. Sea salt depletes potassium, and calcium also causes similar issues that it depletes magnesium. So we're in a deficiency. So the best thing that we can do, in my opinion, to mitigate this is to increase potassium citrate. Potassium citrate has a high affinity to oxalate. And we know this because it's just led to that state of hypokalemia because these oxalates are binding to the potassium. So a good magnesium or potassium citrate supplement will help with oxalate detox, and it's a known contributor to helping recover and reverse from gout attacks also. So whether it be monosodium urate crystals from gout attacks or whether it's from oxalate detoxing, so oxalate crystals, I think magnesium and potassium citrate would be a goer there. The acrylamide, I mean, coming back to what Stephen mentioned in regards to the acrylamide, it's a potent neurotoxin. It's a known carcinogen. In 2018 in California, the 7-Eleven stores had to put a Prop 65 warning on their coffee to say that it's extremely hazardous. In the same that we do in the UK with cigarette packets to say that cigarette tobacco smoke causes cancer and so on and so forth. I've suffered with severe issues in my legs recently, which removing coffee has allowed me to recover. And Steve, similar issues. It's caused severe pains in my muscles and joints. I've lost grip in my hand. I couldn't walk up the stairs. It affected my gait. And this was to do with the acrylamide, I believe, or mycotoxins. Basically, the symptoms I was suffering from were the same as motor neurons disease, ALS, which was quite scary. So, but I was drinking a lot of coffee. Now, acrylamide is accumulative. So if we are only consuming 1 to 2 cups a day, then your body can detox this. I was drinking 4 to 5 cups a day, but I was consuming 2 double shots in each cup. So 4 coffees per cup basically means I was consuming the equivalent of 20 cups per day. Now we have a problem. I've removed it, and all of these issues, inflammation, especially in my, I used to get in the bottom of the arch of my foot also. All of these cleared up within 2 weeks. I'm just over 4. In fact, it was 4 weeks on Friday. I've been coffee free. I'm struggling in regards to not having that uplift of energy. And you probably notice I'm not my super buoyant self, but I've noticed my energy levels are quite stable. Steve laughing there. I'm sure you'll get a blast of it later, but I don't reach the highs, but I'm not crashing to the lows also. So look, there's lots of contributing factors. I mean, there's some amazing advice there. But either whether it be oxalate or whether it be monosodium urate crystals, magnesium citrate and potassium citrate could be the answer if you wanted to keep the coffee in. And it's not a sales pitch, but as Lee knows, I produce these electrolytes that contain those compounds specifically to address those issues. And I think that's the ones that you had, wasn't it? Was the unflavored, and the one I'm drinking today is my cherry berry. But that's not a sales pitch by any means. But I do create these products because I believe they're number one on the planet. But yeah, a couple of options there. So there's a few takeaways. I think some food for thought, pun intended.
Yes, absolutely.
Because it's time for me. I need to go. But I've just noticed Jacob's popped up here. Anyone please help? Ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. We're in dire need of help. God bless. So just some quick advice. Gluten and wheat proteins, you don't need that. Seed oils, you need to get rid of that. Spicy foods, dairy, but indigestible fiber. So unfortunately, you need to transition. Whoever's suffering here, they need to transition slowly but surely into a carnivore diet and gravitate more towards a PKD diet, paleo-ketogenic diet, which is essentially a lion diet that when you look at your plate, you've got sort of 1 part fat, 2 parts protein, and you need to just, commit and stick with it. You will fix your gut. You will go into remission, and you won't, need your continue to take medications, and you'll certainly avoid surgeries. So that is my advice, but I'm going to go, guys. So all the best. Enjoy, and appreciate you having me on. So
Pleasure, Lee. Speak to you soon. Take care, man.
Nice to see you, Jordan. Nice to see you, Jordan.
No, I'm Kent from Lee. I'm Kent from Lee. In England.
Oh, Lee. Yeah, I know the place. Yeah, great county. Take care.
See you later. Bye. And off he goes there. So it's nice to have 425 people watching live at the moment, which is great. And now we can talk about Lee behind his back. No, not really. So, well, a great guest. And I think, just for those that have missed the bit about the colostomy bag or the bag that he has, I think his channel is worth watching if you still believe in fiber. Honestly, he's the best channel for that, because he's got some physical proof. And every nurse I've ever spoken to, and I work on the GP referral, general practitioner referral list for many years. Every single nurse that deals with bags will tell you there's always plant material in there. It's never meat. Never. Right. Nice question for us three from Karsten. And here we go. Why do we need less calories, bad word I know, on carnivore versus high carb? Well, firstly, let's have Jonathan, as he's the guest, Rich. I could see you chomping at the bit, mate.
I was going to say let Jonathan jump on because he's the guest.
All right.
Yes, I've seen a massive variance in my clients that follow a carnivore diet. I've noticed that people tend to eat less over time. I think, in my opinion, based on experience, that they apply more biohacks. They actually absorb more photons from the sun, because they're more into biohacks. People that come along this sort of road, like, they look at diet, and most people think, oh, diet, is everything. Then people like us who sort of refine it a bit, oh, there's a bit more to it. You might get an extra 20, 30, 40% here doing this, that, and the other. So people will go out in the sun more, ground more. Their body's more efficient. Therefore, there's not as much mitochondrial damage, not as much quantum tunneling, and a lower gradient of overall loss in terms of nutrition because of things like leaky gut. Now, how much that comes into it is hard to say. Based on studies we do have, it seems that animal foods, particularly animal proteins, have an absorbability and digestibility rate of around about 95%. Compare that to plants, optimal at best, perfect processing, perfect preparation, fermentation, what have you, maybe 90%. And even then, you're not getting all the other nutrients as well. So what you'll notice is, if you eat, for example, a 10-ounce ribeye steak, and say that had, I don't know, but say it had 400 calories in it, that 400 calories of nutrition would yield more nourishment. Therefore, you don't need as much food. Your appetite will be less. Therefore, your body, in terms of your output, would adjust. So your respiration rate, your heart rate, all these things will start to go down. So when Stephen's talking about, your blood glucose goes down, your body is in a less inflammatory, toxic overburden. Therefore, it has less to waste and it becomes more efficient. So that would be why someone would tolerate a lower food mass diet in a kind of a state versus a high carb state. On a high carb diet, when I was bulking up, I'd be eating, at the time it would look like 6,500 calories Now, for me to gain weight, if I chose to, 3,500, 4,000. If we looked at protein, fat with 20 grams of carbs I have each day or something like that. So that tells me, yeah, there is a massive fluctuation in it. But it just goes to show, it doesn't really matter that much what calories you're eating, because the calories that I'm eating now, in terms of the food I enjoy a lot more, and it makes me feel better. I don't need as much. So my body is a more efficient machine. So in a bodybuilding perspective, it's brilliant, because you're eating less mass of food, roughly half of the mass that I was eating before. So I'm probably eating honestly, now I'm eating way more meat than I used to, about 2 kilos a day. But if I added in carbs to the mix, it would be something like 3.5 to 4 kilos of food mass per day. If my body has to deal with double the amount of mass in terms of the digestion efficiency going through it, and the food going through my digestive system, it's not going to be much fun for my body to deal with. So my body's wasting energy. The goal is not to eat as much food as possible, guys. It's to eat the exact diet which yields the best physical and bodily health outcome, mental health outcome, well-being result. But I think people look at sometimes these numbers, these things on a piece of paper, these charts, these macros, these percentages, these ratios, and I speak about it a lot, but the problem isn't so much that, it's the other stuff. It's about not being reductionist, not being in the mindset that we need to track this number. That's what I think is more important. And intuition is a really great tool, and we follow it, and we do follow it. Our body rewards us just as long as we give it the right signals to the right food. So that's my take on the caloric model in terms of the carnivorous versus carbohydrate state.
Brilliant. I mean, can I just put a little analogy in here, Rich, before you get to your answer? Is that okay? Because I use this quite a bit. If you imagine that petrol or gas for your car was 100% efficient and went into your engine and was combusted and moved your car 100 miles, let's say, all right, then you was able to add an additive to bulk out that petrol, gas, whatever. But it couldn't be used by the car whatsoever, all right? And you had a 50% gas, 50% useless fluid in there, all right? We'd have to use twice as much to go as far. It's really that simple. It's really that simple. Your body is made of protein and fats, and if you put protein into the system, it's going to make structure in your body. It's going to be used for all the things it needs to do. And fats will go in, and it will be precursors to things that your body needs, but both energy and structure. And carbohydrates don't do either of those things. So your body will always want protein. There's a thing called the protein leverage hypothesis. Yes, that's still a theory, but it makes total sense. Your body wants protein because it needs to make structure. So if you've got something that is 100% protein, let's say, it's going to be very easy to get to your needs compared to something that's 50% protein. You're going to need twice as much because your body's going to have to sift out all that rubbish as well that doesn't get used. And it all makes total sense. This is why people say, I'm pooping less. Well, of course you're pooping less because there's less waste. So go back to the car analogy. The thing that clean burns, you won't have a bad exhaust. If you've got something that's 50% efficient, your exhaust is going to be all black and sooty and it's going to come out. So, yeah, when the vegans say I'm pooping a lot, yeah, great. I've got a car that's got lots of black soot coming out every time I change down in the Kia. So, that's a different way of looking at it. And calories, by the way, for people that are listening on the audio, every time we say calories, pretty much, we do the air quotes, because calories are a unit of heat. They're not nutritional. Anyway, right, Rich, your go.
Yeah, look, you guys, I think, have nailed it. The only thing I'd add to that is a bit of personal experience. When I was clinically obese and type 2 diabetic, I was consuming around 2,700 calories per day. Now, or when I gravitated into the lifestyle, ketogenic, more carnivore, again, same as Jonathan, I was consuming in excess of 6,000. On average, it was between 4,000 to 6,000. I don't know how much I consume now because I don't track. Again, as Jonathan said, I eat intuitively. If I'm not hungry, I don't eat. I eat when I'm hungry. Once I'm halfway through my meal, if I'm full, I stop eating. I listen to satiety signaling. I don't fast per se yet. I'll go 18 hours a day without eating. But the reason that I say I don't fast is I don't force a fast. Again, I eat intuitively. So I eat as nature intended, and I eat when I feel hungry. the issue that comes with a lot of the foods that we consume, the processed foods, and even coming into plants and things, they contain lots of anti-nutrients. The plant toxins, the phytoalexins, lectins, and phytates, they block the absorption of vitamins and minerals. Lectins, for example, will bind to the microvilli lining the gut. If you think of the microvilli as being little fingers in the gut, and nutrients come in and they bind to this microvilli, and this is how we absorb our nutrients. But when lectins come in and they bind to the enterocytes on the microvilli, they cause a reduction in the surface area, basically meaning less nutrients are absorbed. If less nutrients are absorbed, we eat more because we're not receiving the correct signaling to say that we've received the adequate amino acids, vitamins and minerals, and so on and so forth. So we eat more. And it's as simple as that. It's when you eat clean, as Jonathan and Stephen said, the body absorbs more nutrients. We become more efficient. We get more bang for the buck. There's less waste, and so on and so forth. It's just eating as nature intended, keeping it clean and simple. And it is as simple as that.
Great answers. That's really good. So I'm going to go straight to the next question, if that's all right with Jonathan. Jason's asking, on a standard diet, I find it hard to wake up. I feel groggy, hungover, and it takes an hour for me to wake up. Would or could keto remedy this?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, even a ketogenic diet will do the job. I notice for myself, and a lot of people with neurodivergence, it seems to be getting that carbohydrate intake low does the job. Then for other people with autoimmunity, it seems to be more so the carnivore side does the rest of the work, like the heavy brunt work, the lifting. I've noticed for myself that as long as I keep my carbs, when I say carbs, I'm talking about dairy, eggs, the small amount that's in other foods I eat, maybe caviar, fish. There's a gram of carbs in some fish, believe it or not. Stuff like that, milk even. I'm having always below 50 grams, but if I exceed 50 grams, so I think one day we're going to be greedy and have a big bowl of Greek yogurt that's like 2 kilos and put Keto Pro protein powder in it, bam, like that.
That's it.
So we're talking about like 100 grams of carbs here, guys. If I, have too many carbs, I'd say for me it's about 50 grams or more. That's when I start to feel inflamed. My body starts to feel a bit slow, but I hold a bit more weight than what my body is meant to. So the next day, despite increasing my mass intake of food by maybe, 500 grams, I might wake up 2 kilos heavier. Doesn't seem to make sense, but my body will, if I keep doing that diet, it will maintain that 2 kilos extra. So there is a fine limit in your body of how much carbohydrate you can take in. And that's whether you're muscular like me, muscular like the guys above, fit and active, you do loads of endurance work. There is a fine limit somewhere. Do you find that for yourself? So what I'd probably do, Jason, in your situation is transition slowly over a period of about, 3 to 6 weeks, depending on how your diet was beforehand, maybe even 8 weeks. And just see where you start to get that improvement, where your body weight's just about stable, but if you eat a bit more, then it flies back up. So you can use your body weight as a way to identify and leverage your carb intake around what you want to eat each day. So I know a lot of people say, I want to eat the keto diet because it gives me more choice. Fine, fair enough, it's better than what you're doing before. But finding that bracket, that range of carbohydrate is what's going to be important. So for you, Jason, it might be 20 grams, it might be 10. I believe Dr. Ken Berry's sort of stance is keep it below 10 grams if you can, or 20 grams, which is perfectly possible if you're just eating eggs and, half a glass of milk each day or something. It's perfectly possible. But that's my take on keto diet, groggy, hungover. I'd look at deuterium depletion as well, just look into that whole topic. That's probably quite a nice one to look into. I'll probably look at that probably third outside of the diet, appropriate light exposure. Then I'd look at the water, deuterium depletion side. What about you guys? What do you think towards this?
Well, Jonathan, I was going to make the most of you being here actually and go on to the next question, if that's okay, because I think you've covered it pretty well, don't you, Rich?
Yeah, spot on. I'm sure we can circle back to things. I'm sure these will come back up again and again.
Yeah.
What I will add is, look, I know this is a carnivore live stream. Just to add really quickly, most of us didn't begin being carnivore per se, and that's what this person is getting at, is, maybe to start beginning with a ketogenic lifestyle. So what I've done, I've just literally posted into the comments a link to a shopping list on my website, which is a traffic light system of all the foods that you can eat, which are in green. Others are in amber, which are the vegetables. Ideally, we don't want to be eating vegetables, but again, for variety purposes. And then there's a red section. It's all self-explanatory, but I've highlighted the compounds that are higher in oxalate and lectins, so you can maybe try to gravitate around those, but always prioritize protein. Protein in nature comes with fat, and every cell in the body is made of protein and fat predominantly, as Jonathan just said there. So nothing else to add, but I'm sure we can circle back to these. We've got another 22 and a bit hours, so I'm sure.
Yes, yeah. But we've only got Jonathan for 20 minutes or less than that, or 10 minutes. So yeah, this is a really interesting question, and I thought he would have a nice take on this. So this is Z. She's saying mostly housebound for over 4 years, fibromyalgia, Sjögren's, heart disease, 6 weeks, carnivore today. Most symptoms have gone. Isn't that amazing? Had cheese and reacted badly. Should I do the lion diet? And the reason I'm really interested in Jonathan's take on this is because he's one that doesn't like these knee-jerk reactions. Why go lion? Why not just take cheese back out? That's sort of how I'm leaning it. But let's hear from Jonathan.
But you guys know me too well at this point. Yeah. Both Richard and I will have a useful insight to you, Z. Both Richard and I have both suffered with fibromyalgia or fibromyalgia-like symptoms, serious chronic fatigue. So yeah, I've been bedbound for 20 hours a day, and I know exactly what it feels like. I know what it feels like to struggle to breathe when you get up in the morning. So yeah, I've been there, and what I'd probably say is I'll just keep the cheese out. I wouldn't deliberately go strict, because when I say strict, it's not the right word. I wouldn't say the word strict is the right word for lion diet. I'd say more refined. Refined might be the right word. So if you're being more refined in terms of eating just beef and lamb, maybe you're missing out on oily fish. Maybe that's what's going to help you more. You know, I mean, some of the things you mentioned, I mean, fibromyalgia, that could be just part of that could be pro-inflammatory from having too much seed oils in your system, pro-inflammatory omega-6, which, although omega-6 is essential fatty acid, there are some that are particularly more deleterious than others. Maybe your body just needs that gentle switch. 6 weeks is not a long time. And for me to experience a lot of the chronic fatigue benefit in terms of remission, alleviation, mitigation I do experience right now is, it took me about a year, if I'm honest, and it doesn't sound pleasant. It sounds like, I've got to do this for a year. Well, it's do that for a year or suffer. Choose one. You choose one. So for me, it's an easy option. It's an easy option to say, maybe I don't be strict for 6 weeks straight to try and do something. Maybe I'm 95% strict, but I do that for a year. I commit to a year. You'll hear from people time and time again, it takes at least 3 months to sort of really nail down your diet. Then I'd say beyond that, you're looking up to about a year for most issues. Some are more tricky to sort out. Luckily, yours, apart from the Sjögren's disease, which is quite problematic. I mean, I do hear about that a lot. Not many people seem to know the answers to that one, which is frustrating, but you're in the best diet you could possibly be to put that into remission, if it is possible. So I don't think there's a way around that. But yeah, I would personally dump the cheese. The cheese isn't essential. It's not an essential thing you need in your diet. I'd keep in the eggs for the cofactors, choline, great brain food, which people don't realise, high in B vitamins, high in folate. You could also have with those issues that you've mentioned, some kind of methylation pathway issue as well. So say you go strict lion diet, okay, you've reduced your folate intake by about 2/3. And if you have that polymorphism, which I have, which means I have a high requirement for folate, I also have the same for calcium, I'll feel like crap. It might not be a week, maybe a week goes by, you clear out your system, your digestive system's fine, okay, you're trotting along, then bam, something hits you again, you don't feel good, you have a bad reaction, then you start binge eating. It's all about slow, methodical interventions, the right test to underpin what the problem is, then seeing what intervention that goes alongside that to make the best effect. So that's what I would personally do. But what do you guys think? Strict lion or what?
Do you know what I like there is Jonathan's always straight to the point, eat clean or suffer. You decide.
Yes.
I don't mess around.
It is as simple as that.
I'm autistic, so my viewpoint is this is what you need to do. I can see it in my head. Like I've worked with enough people now to know you'll suffer and suffer and suffer until you just get your head on straight and stick with it. Yeah. I see it so many times. I have to just be very,
Yeah. I get this. Sorry, Steve, go on.
I was going to say one of the things I try to do is read the question back to people and let them realise they're answering their own question very often. They know. This is what Jonathan's also trying to get people to, is they know the answer. They've just got to trust themselves. Because if you read that, right, mostly housebound, fibromyalgia, heart disease, 6 weeks carnivore, symptoms gone. Most symptoms have gone, right. So that means you're doing something right. Had cheese, reacted badly. That's as far as I would go. Should I do line diet? No. Go back to what you were doing. Just take cheese out. To me, that's, how we try to answer the questions. I just need to jump in because I just want people to realise that this is going out on many streams. There are many, many questions and many comments. I am trying to keep up. I'm not after any sympathy. This is not the world's smallest violin. When you've got 450 people watching and you have got over 100 comments coming through, and we try to do proper answers, if you've posted at 8:30 and it's taken us an hour to get there, that's because we are trying to give proper answers to everything that are fair. And also we have guests who we have a speciality as well. So, and Dr. Chafee will be on later, I promise. Yeah. Well, sorry, Jonathan.
Yeah, sorry. Also, just to be like, it sounds obvious, but very clear of people. We don't come on here just to give you like a 5-second answer like Stephen mentioned earlier. That could be dangerous. I've been harmed by these 5-second answers that take, just eat meat till you're full. Just do priming. Just do that. All these little things like, no, we need more context. So what we're doing is we're teaching how to examine your own experience. What am I doing right now? What is or isn't working? And what would be the best course of action? And we're all committed on Carnivore Team GB. Obviously, not all of our panelists on Carnivore Team GB are here right now. But when we give answers, we're committed to giving people safe, effective advice that does the job. I mean, if we don't know, we say, this is what you need to look at, this is where you need to go. So looking at the starred chats right now, we have 41 starred chats. We're 1 hour, 55 minutes in. Some of these go way back. So we are doing our absolute best to answer the questions. So try and listen in carefully as long as possible so it gives you a bit of incentive, because maybe your question will be in an hour's time, but maybe we're about to answer it from someone else. So stay tuned.
Spot on.
Go on, Rich, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to tell you to stop mourning about all of these fantastic comments that we're getting. But
and Jonathan, I don't know if his internet went or whether he's just decided to go. But anyway, yes, we will have the wonderful Phil Escott coming in 5 minutes. I think Jonathan there has done his time.
Okay, brilliant. Great to have Jonathan. Jonathan will also be at that conference that Stephen and I are speaking at, and there is a link for that. Also, coming back to what you just mentioned, Steve, you and I have a school group, a group on school. It's a private network. It's $4 a month, which works out less than $1 a week, I think, isn't it, if you look at it per 52. Stephen and I go live in there usually every Monday at 8 p.m. I don't know if we're doing it tonight. I haven't spoken to Stephen about it yet because of the 24 live, but we go in there for an hour every Monday for live Q&A where we can really get into the weeds in regards to questions. It's a little bit more difficult on YouTube with questions because of the back and forth, but it's a Zoom type meeting. There's usually 10 to 20 people in there. Some remain anonymous and type questions in, and there it is. There's lots of free courses. There's a fantastic course that Stephen and I have written in there for an introduction into the low-carb ketogenic way of eating, which involves incremental changes, one video each day, adding in one change per week as you gravitate and understand. And we educate in regards to why we are making these changes. And there it is, the Fat Club or the Healthy Living Club. Fantastic course. We used to charge £50 for that course, and it's part of the free content when you join our school group. And I'll pop the link in the comments there for people if you want further advice. And also Stephen, myself, Jonathan, and most of the guests that come on also offer coaching. So check out the links in the description for that below. Just really quickly coming back to the last thing about the cheese, if you don't mind. There he is.
Hello.
I just wanted to say that the casein in the cheese can still cause intestinal permeability, which is going to exacerbate those issues. So I think what Stephen and Jonathan have said in regards to just removing the cheese and going back to what you were eating prior to that, there are other compounds that can cause issues. But if you're not suffering with them, then there's no need to remove. You could do a full elimination protocol and reintroduce them. But I'm thinking, as the guys have already said, if cheese is causing the problem, then why restrict and remove other compounds that could be conferring a benefit, as Jonathan says, with choline and eggs? Really super important for every cell in the body, the production of acetylcholine neurotransmitters. We need choline. We can't live without it. Just take the cheese out.
Yeah, just take the cheese out. Can we just say for the audio podcast people that Jonathan has magically reappeared? So I'm assuming there was some sort of connection.
Back once again with the Renegade Master.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. If Phil can hear, by the way, Phil, we can see you in the sides behind the screens, but we couldn't see your camera. So, Jonathan, did you want to wrap up your little section? And do you want to stick around for a bit to banter with Phil?
I'll say hello to Phil in a second. Yeah. I just want to say thank you to Stephen and Richard for setting this up. It's the second annual original Carnivore-a-thon, hosted of 24 hours, which I must commend them both on. It speaks testament to the longevity and endurance that these guys have. Now, we always say about, how Dr. Chafee, he's always up on these live streams like 3.5 hours. If I interview him, I'll chat with him for about an hour in the video. Then we'll chat for 2 hours after. And I'm like, well, isn't it like midnight over there? No, he just carries on. So these guys are doing the same job all the other big doctor names are doing. And they're doing it free of charge. So I do recommend checking out these guys' services, their websites as well. They do have really good, useful resources, information, including the school app that Coach Stephen runs with Richard. And they've both got, I know Stephen's got ebooks. I know Richard's got some great blog posts on his website, so check that out if you haven't already. Then once you've done all that and you've supported these guys for all their free hard work that are dedicating towards you guys right now, which you guys do not have to pay for at all, I'll just say subscribe to my channel, which is just at Carnivore Muscle, and you'll find me there. And I'm nearly 10,000 subscribers, which means I can nearly call myself an influencer.